relevant, very important, trending and disruptive in every point of the way. So I'd request you all to make sure that whoever is leaving from this hall comes back at 3:30 because you cannot afford to miss that riveting conversation which is going to be happening in Jasmine Ballroom 2. So make sure that you come back timely. On this note, ladies and gentlemen, let's bring forth another compelling and promising topic on the facet of fintech and digital payments. This topic is about frictionless payments, an emerging trend for our payment processing. We all nowadays are dependent on apps like Paytm, RuPay, PhonePe, to name a few, to really complete our simple day-to-day transactions. But modern consumers and modern merchants, in some way or the other, seek out flexibility, convenience, and security when it comes to online and in-person payment options. That's why opting for frictionless payment method has become popular more than ever before. In fact, the international marketing statistics portal Statistica estimates that the frictionless payment technology will grow to a whopping $8 trillion by 2024. And these statistics alone highlight and reinforce the importance and significance of frictionless payments around the world in the days to come. Our next panel discussion revolves around the topics of, once again, reiterating frictionless payments and emerging trend for payment processing. Now, to navigate this conversation, I'd like to call on stage our moderator for this panel discussion, Mr. Anil Kumar Gupta, who is the partner at MicroSave Consulting. Can we give a huge round of applause for him, ladies and gentlemen? And joining him on stage are going to be the following panel members: Swapnil, Jambhale, co-founder and COO at Safexpay. We have with us Sanjib, Subba, Chief Executive Officer at Nepal Electronic Payment System. Shruti, Kharbanda, Chief Operating Officer at Pay10. And Anup, Nayar, CEO of the domestic region at In Solutions Global. So with this context, I hand over the illustrious set of panel members. Over to you, Anil.
Am I audible?
Yep.
So, thank you for this great round of introduction. And I welcome all my panelists here. And a great welcome to all the audience here. I think you all had your lunch. And probably we will make sure that you don't feel sleepy during this discussion. Coming to the discussion, see, I think payment is all about money. Actually, we all deal with money, and I think money can keep us awake. Typically, what we do with the money is that in some shape or form, we store it and we send and spend it. There's another concept with the money is what we call it friction and flow, and this applies into the payment side also. Flow would mean that it flows seamlessly with very limited friction, and a lot of people would love it. And friction would mean that people want to have some friction. Someone like me would prefer some bit of friction, if not complete friction. So I want to take you to two different parts of the country. There is one gentleman by the name Radhesham. He lives in Western Rajasthan. He keeps money either in cash or he puts that into a bank account. And even for doing that, he needs some assistance. So he gets assistance either from the bank branch or he goes to a banking agent through which he is able to do the transaction. And most of his expenses are in cash. And because of that, he faces several challenges. For example, he has to stand in queue while making utility payment. And he wants to change, but I think he finds it very, very difficult because of his own digital savviness that he has, or lack of that he has, and he continues his life in the same fashion. On the other side, we have another protagonist by the name Sapna. She lives in urban areas. She's suave, she's sophisticated. She leads her economic life based on a set of cards and off late phone, which has been her lifeline for making all the payments. She likes and she is very comfortable with making digital payments. And she is irritated with some frictions. So these frictions, it could be additional factor of authentication or sometime putting in same information again and again. So before we go deeper into digital payments and frictionless payment, I just want to set the context that we are trying to cover three fundamental points. First is cash and digital. So what I always say, is it a paradox or is it an opportunity? So it seems that countries like India, we love cash. And it may sound understatement for some of you, those who are not tracking cash in India. To give you some number, we have about $400 billion of cash in circulation, which is nearly 14% of our GDP. So it's a very large number. Second is that if you look at digital, we love it. So, and we are trending close to 10 billion, 10 billion transactions on monthly basis, which is way above than any other country in the world. So both the things exist. We have the people like Radhesham, we have people like Sapna, and both of them, they are driving either cash or digital. So both coexist. So that gives us an opportunity. Second part is all about the infrastructure. Digital payments, they need infrastructure. And policymaker, they have helped it through India Stack, which is an open API policy, and all other things. All other market participants, they have built their apps or their processing abilities on top of that to make sure that we are able to have such a fantastic digital rail and apps on top of it. India has over 1 billion cards, which includes credit and debit card, mostly debit card because credit cards are only about 70 million. And we have about 200 million POS and QR codes. And these are total numbers. It's not necessary that we have that many number of merchants because we don't have that many number of merchants. Payment processors, like what we have here, they have built their businesses on top of it, and they are providing incredible experience to all of us. Third, which is a critical segment of it, is users. So users is the last part of the puzzle, and they are very important because ultimately they are going to use. And what we see is that India is a large and diverse country, and there are many large segments and subsegments. We can take multiple approaches to segment them or cut them into multiple slices. It could be age, education, income, wealth, and so on. This diversity means what works for one doesn't work for others. So Radhesham and Sapna, as part of our story, they are two different people. So they are different by way of their education, the way they live, and not to forget the gender. Generally, we miss gender in most of our conversations. So turning to the panel, so we have been talking about payments, and payments means for us is digital payment. But in a real world, we have both the things, cash payments as well as digital payments. This is how, and we look at the industry. But there is a lot that goes into this while making it frictionless at the front end. So let me first come to Anup. So Anup is part of InSolution Global, and InSolution Global works in 16 countries with a large number of clients. Its solution touches all stakeholders, customers, banks, merchants, and governments. So Anup, the question to you is, how do you do that with such varied requirements cutting across multiple markets and still keeping that as friction-free as possible?
So thanks, Anil. So let me start my input by saying I have a pet peeve with regard to B2B payments. For some strange reasons, we never had this, the entire B2B payment story has never seen that demigod status which has got attributed to B2C payments. We have so much of glamour and glitz associated with B2C. Unfortunately, B2B has always been a poor cousin as far as B2C payments are concerned. Now, coming back to the frictionless part, so what I believe is that the entire B2B story has gained traction in terms of adoption post the pandemic largely for two reasons. One is the fact that there was this less touch requirement coming in, and number two, there was a huge requirement for work from home. So it brought in a lot of changes when it came to corporate payments because businesses had to go on, they had to innovate, and that's when corporates started looking internally as to how they can best automate their billing systems, because cash was a requirement, and the entire upstream and downstream payments had to be made. So I think the corporates at that point in time looked at three options. First, they wanted to streamline their payments as far as downstream and upstream vendors were concerned. They wanted to get as much as data as possible with regard to making payments. Now, as opposed to B2C payments, when we start at ISG start working on B2B payments as opposed to B2C payments across large corporates, large banks, what we see is that whilst we can talk about frictionless, but what we see is friction is one aspect because as opposed to B2C payments, B2B payments, they're not homogeneous as opposed to B2C payments. There are multiple stakeholders. The requirements are varied. There are a lot of regulatory compliances which are critical requirement. The integration processes, getting this entire upstream, downstream vendors as a part of this entire payments business is a complex exercise because each have their own requirements in terms of technology, in terms of integrations. So it's a pretty much of a cumbersome process. But the end story, when it happens on a seamless basis, it's a beautiful story to have. So that's, to summarize, I don't think B2B would be as frictionless. What we can at best do is make it as seamless as possible through better workflow streams and getting as much as payment partners and regulatory compliances in place.
So thanks, Anup, to differentiate between B2B and B2C payments and making sure that we are talking about friction and seamless, not in the same language. So these are two different things. So thanks for that. So coming to Shruti. So Shruti is part of Pay10, and Pay10 is a versatile electronic payment provider in the market. They help businesses to do their business in an electronic payment way. India is a complex country, or many countries in one country, this is what I used to say. So Shruti, how does Pay10 make payment processing frictionless and cost-effective for businesses?
Firstly, thank you, Anil, for having me here today. Let's take a step back from your question and define what frictionless and invisible payments actually mean, right? We live in a consumer-oriented market, right? And if you see, the trend shows the consumer's average attention span of a consumer is 8 seconds, right? So at the end of the day, frictionless payments is all about boosting consumer convenience and spending less time on completing a transaction. So these are two basic aspects where frictionless payments come from. Now, we as in Pay10 or Pay10, serving the B2B segment of merchants, or we serve B2B or B2B2C. We have to look at what our industry is asking for, right? Our industry trend is going from the traditional industry to a context-based industry. Context-based industry in the sense, for example, if you're looking at insurance, it's no longer male, female, location. It's all about how healthy you are. The healthier you are, the less your insurance. For example, vehicle insurance, right? You have a black box in your car. The better driving pattern and driving behavior, the lesser the insurance, no matter the age, right? So that's a context-based industry that we are moving towards. So when we look at our requirements, what's coming from our consumers and merchants, we talk about this industry as asking for less wait time, which is quick checkouts, self-checkouts, which in turn creates cost optimization for organizations. On the other hand, that optimization could be used very well. So the people who are no longer doing checkouts can actually stand and do customer services, build customer relationship, the personalization of the customers that we are talking about. It has to be easy to use. It has to be zero error to build trust. Now, frictionless payment to build trust is a big thing. Trust is where the whole industry starts from. My merchants build trust with their customers with products or services that they give, the quality of the product services they give, and how their payments are processed. There are three key items. So Pay10 as a payment solution service provider is a key contributor to its merchant success. That is where we are coming from. So what we are doing is we are focusing on a few key areas to build trust with our merchants, right? First is how do we authenticate payments, right? Payment authentication mechanism. So it can be pre-authorized, it can be biometric. Now, did you know facial biometric for a person with dark skin has more false positives than a person with light skin? Right? So you cannot build a standard based on false positives, right? So maybe use a combination of
It's like clothing sizes.
absolutely. So we're talking about using a combination of palm prints, fingerprints, retina, face, facial recognition, voice. Then we're also talking about tokenization for card security. So data privacy comes into picture. With all this data, cyber security is a topic that we cannot avoid, right? Ultimately, with all this technology, what Pay10 is trying to do is keep the merchant success rate high. Ultimately, for my merchant, that is my quality of service, right? So, me being in operations, I have a very pessimistic view. Success is great. Let's look at the failures, right? I focus on technical declines, whether that is due to merchants, due to my technology, or my acquirer. And that is what my focus is to keep that success rate high. Now I'll come back to your question that you asked about making it cost effective. Right? Cost effective is easy to say. We are talking about automation. Everybody talks about automation, but that's a decade old. Let's talk about autonomous operations, which is deeply powered by AI, machine learning. And it is a journey that we take our organizations through, right? And with autonomous, we want people to only focus on, my employees or my team to only focus on subjective decision making, right? And then also looking at optimizing the use of technology. We all use clouds, right? Now, how many people would say, let's use Mongo on a EC2 on AWS as opposed to making sure my technology is able to self-scale and self-reduce so I can optimize the cost. That is where the cost savings come from.
Thanks, Shruti. In fact, you added two dimensions to it. One is all about the context, and second is that moving from, say, uh, uh, old ways of cost effectiveness to autonomous way of cost effectiveness. Okay, quickly moving to Safexpay. So we also have Swapnil with us. They provide a fully customized payment services to businesses so that they just need one platform to accept payments from their customer, and they provide unlimited payment options, be it cards, net banking, UPI, wallet, and so on. So let us hear from Swapnil and that how they have done this thing.
Okay. See, always the customer is first. We all works towards the customer experience. Here also the customer word is coming where there's a custom which is coming. The customer may be from a B2B or a customer may be from a B2C. We cater more to the B2B2C, whereby we look at customizations with our limited not only to the payments, but looking at the customer class. You mentioned an example, Radhesham versus Swapna. So you have to be ready to offer a payment in a box where you cater to both the segments. We say cash, we say less cash, we say digital. I think digital is the way to go ahead, which is very important. With respect to the India, globally, yes, we are already going digitally, but digital is a way to go because we are in a transformation phase. We can go step by step. What we at Safexpay is doing is we have a customer specific and a sector specific approach. So it be a government, be it be an education, there is a custom solutions that has been built. It is not a typical payment aggregation platform that offered to us every sector. That actually brings up the value addition for the customer because some of the cases in the use cases in the government we have seen that if government payments are huge, we have seen a trend which is happening on the UPI. So if UPI is a preferred payment mode, the success ratio has to be high, as mentioned by, because we both are an operations, we always look at that aspects first. So uptime, it is not only with respect to the infrastructure, it's with respect to the transaction processing and the overall customer experience. When we talk about frictionless payments, there are in-app based payments, there are one-click checkouts, there are a lot of things that are coming up. But I think more and more the payment options are coming. People need to have a preferred mode. We need to have go deep dive into the analytics of that particular merchant, provide that value-added data, which will be also cost-saving for him. We all know UPI is today in India, there is no cost. And we could see in some of the use cases of government and the education, the larger 60% payments are coming through an UPI platform. So that should be the preferred platform. So that customization also needs to be done. Today, in any segment, you go to Radhesham's example or Swapna, the journey which you say of a transaction is really important. How we can reduce the number of steps for him. Today, we cannot have a customer saying, you go and select a payment gateway or a payment platform and then make a payment. It has to be seamless, as mentioned by Anup. It has to be seamless, it has to be frictionless, and the experience. Today, the TAT that matters the most, and the transaction performance, which includes your payment infrastructure, is also responsible. So there is now a payment infrastructure which is building, and I think we can have a frictionless payments soon building up largely. Thank you.
So actually, your uses of word of phygital, I really love it because in a context like say India or say countries like India, I think that's the only thing which works. So if we are only physical, if we are only digital, both the things will lead to only suboptimal result. Okay, quickly moving to Sanjib. So he comes from Nepal, our neighboring country, and he's part of National Electronic Payment System, which provide multiple payments option to banks in Nepal. It's a consortium over there, like what we have, something like of NPCI equivalent. These include ATM services, POS and acquiring services, card issuance, and transaction processing. So Sanjeev has heard a lot from other panelists, and I think it's time to hear from him that how any PS has embarked on the journey of frictionless payment or maybe a less friction payments, I would say.
Thank you, Anil. Perhaps, like to share not only the journey that NEPS has embarked in Nepal, but the kind of the digital transformation that is laid in Nepal as an ecosystem built by a company like actually NCHL and other players in the market. I think Nepal today stands at a point where we are very proud of homegrown technologies, particularly into payment interfaces. We have our own consortium of another company called National Clearing House Limited. They have rolled out many innovative technologies like that of the NPCI. My company works as a backend solution provider to various banks. It's for the industry, by the industry, sort of like promoted by banks. But we work into the backend technology of the switch, card switch stuff. I'll talk about that, speak of that as well. But I think Nepal have had a pretty interesting journey in last 2 years, particularly thanks to the pandemic, number one, and thanks to the central bank governor himself, who went out onto the front line promoting the QR right about sometime in 2020. So central bank governor going out to the vegetable market, to the vegetable vendor, trying to promote the QR. That was a quite very great inspiration and great support to the economy like ours. And the regulators thought on pushing the, promoting the digital payment ecosystem. So we have now pretty robust technologies powered through company like PhonePe or NCHL or so many other wallets. I think in terms of the licensed PSO PSP, Nepal holds probably the world record. We have 27 PSPs and about 8 or 10 PSOs. In a small economy, about $30 billion size of economy. So number of players are a lot, but that also creates the innovation.
So PSP per $1 billion.
Yes. So in the frictionless, what we have done in last 2 years, NEPS, my company has rolled out particularly a contactless solution, tap and pay. So there's some certain ceiling mandated by the regulator, and the QR is quickly being adopted in urban areas. The adoption is really great. into most of the interoperability is still we are working on the interoperability of the QR because that is one area we still have to work on. And we're learning a lot from like what's happening in Nepal, India and other parts of the world. And particularly, I think India is also facing the same issue of demand side. Nepal is no exception. I think many people refer as a Gen G, but I refer them as a Gen I, the generation born after the like iPhone 2009, before after 2002, 3 or 4, but right after the launch of iPhone in 2009, this kid started coming actually touch and pay. So I think that is going to be very transformative, very disruptive once this generation starts demanding more and more frictionless solution. So this is where we also are being pretty mindful of about the kind of the new technologies that has to be brought in to disrupt the and meet the expectation. So I think like those are the cases from Nepal coming out right now.
Thanks, Sanjib. I think you neatly helped me segue into the next part of my conversation. It's all about different segments, different generations. So you would like to call it Gen I. I would like to say Gen I, but I stands here for internet. So it's not exactly iPhone. So yeah, so we have been hearing like from all of you. I think let's quickly move to the segments or the people that we really cater to. Ultimately, all of them they are going to serve the some set of customers. It could be individual consumers or it could be businesses. So let me first ask Shruti, because anyways you have been dabbling in few solutions like payment gateways, Bharat Bill payment systems, DMT, which is domestic money transfer, and Aadhaar enabled payment system or AEPS. So, and it has users who are generally not as mainstreams as others are. So, what do you think, or how do you look at those consumers, and how will they benefit from frictionless payments? I would just want you to keep it short for about a couple of minutes.
Thank you, Anil. I think in order to talk about benefits, let's talk about what do we need to make our consumers adopt this solution. First thing is to build trust. I keep coming back to trust and customer centricity. Now, in order to build trust, first thing we need is uniform standards, right? Our regulatory bodies need to define common standards and integration frameworks, which is currently being done very nicely by the Indian government. Thank you. NPCI, IAMAI, FCC, PCI are actually playing a very key role in it. We can see UPI and NCMC, which is National Common Mobility Card, as some of the examples that are coming out of this effort. The other thing is very important is to look at customer awareness and adequate disclosures of information. And this is an education exercise not only for the merchant but also for the customers itself, right? So frictionless payment at itself is likely to promote impulsive buying, which will promote more disputes and chargebacks and refunds, which is detrimental to trust that we keep coming back to, right? So clear communication on roles and responsibility for service, product, and price is important. Then provision for customers to cancel the service at any point in time. Then ability for other modes of payment is also required. So frictionless payment is not the only way of doing it, right? Then redressal mechanism. How do we actually address all this? So clear responsibilities and accountabilities. Simplified process, I think my friend touched there, seamless processes for dispute management, chargeback, transaction reversal and void. From tech perspective, availability, disaster recovery, business continuity. So there's so much to look at it that it's very hard to squeeze within the time frame that you've given me. But thank you. So, and I'll keep coming back to data security. I think that is a bane of everybody's life in this room today. And transaction authentication, digital identity protection, which becomes ultimately using technology like AI/ML for behavioral analytics for fraud detection, right? So all this will help us build strategic partnerships with entrepreneurs, right? Ultimately, we want to promote entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs will boost and enhance, come up with products that will enhance customer experience. Then we are going to look at customized and personalized products and services. But ultimately, we are supporters of innovation as opposed to being innovators ourselves in this space.
Fantastic. Actually, I was listening to State Minister of Finance, and he also talked about a lot of collaboration. Probably he meant collaboration between banks and the fintechs, and what you mean here is collaboration between fintechs and other fintechs. I think that's a very interesting and very relevant point. So moving to Sanjeev. He comes from Nepal, and he's already working on several underserved segments, the way we see many of them in India. Let's hear some key messages that Sanjeev has for us and others, those who are trying to build frictionless payments for these segments.
Thank you, Anil. From my perspective, I think we need to be very mindful here when we discuss either digital payment solution or the frictionless payment, because we cannot exclude the people, the marginalized communities, differently able people, and geographically difficult like terrains. So because at the end of the day, all these technologies actually, from my perspective, were designed for like from the perspective of financial inclusion. Let's not even forget that, right? So DFS is a core integral part of the financial inclusion, by which philosophically and rightfully this technology should be available seamlessly for the differently able people, like disabled people, and to people without education, to people who are illiterate, who cannot read and write. So I think this is where the true essence of the frictionless payment for the either like through the biometric. I think one of the panelists talked about it. So it has to be frictionless. The innovation, the disruption. I think next last mile of the disruption should be at that stage, to be able to provide the low cost, frictionless payment solution for the people at the frontiers. So Nepal is a geographically challenged country. We have the high Himalayas. India has the numbers, but we have only one thing: Mount Everest. I think your a billion people cannot beat us into 8848.
I completely
That
agree.
we are so proud of it. In other numbers, we cannot beat you, but in Mount Everest, nobody can beat us. That's I can challenge. Anyway, so we have geographically challenged terrains. So this is where we need a lot of innovative, disruptive solution for the frictionless payment for the people, differently able, as I said, disabled people, people without education, people who cannot, read and write. So this is where the next last mile innovation has to come in. And my country, I think we are very mindful about this kind of opportunities as well as challenges. I'm very excited to share that I met a couple of people here who are working in those kind of last mile solutions, and I met many of them here. Perhaps a new collaboration would come up, which we would be able to roll out these solutions. Because for urban people like you and me, I think this is more than other opportunities available. But I think when we discuss frictionless, that is what we have to keep in mind. Thank you.
Thanks, Sanjeev. I think very interesting stories about Himalayan and others. So let me move to Swapnil. Swapnil spoke about that. How do they empower business? And let's hear from him what users say about frictionless payment. Do they want more friction? Do they want less friction, or they want something else?
See, user wants less friction. User wants higher success ratio. Users are looking at how their business is growing. If they want to add up some sort of, if you look at examples of retail or e-commerce, the transactions on day by day are increasing. The purchasing post-pandemic, you have seen there's already a big spike on the transaction trends. Specifically, if you look at the millennials who are still buying on the e-commerce platform, are huge. Now even the next generation, even the older generation is now preferring due to the pandemic, thanks to the pandemic, that even they are preferring. So your load has already taken a spike. But the biggest challenge, which if that awareness is not created, okay, there will be a friction. So first, if we cater to all the segments, all the sectors, it is very important to create that awareness among that this is easy. What we call as our tagline or punchline is a swifter, safer, and simpler, which actually addressed to all the customer segments saying that this is safer, this is safer. So that's a concern which is there in the mind. Is it safe? Is it simpler for me? Whether I'll be able to use or still use a cash? That's a mindset that is still psychologically playing in tier 4, tier 3. I'm a cash comfortable guy. Even as of now, even we all are traveling. I've been given this example many of the times. We all are using a mobile-based payments. We all have a card in the card. But still at back of mind, we keep 1,000 or 2,000 rupees cash in our purse as a backup. So when we talk about payment infrastructure, BCP, we also make sure we have a BCP if cash back and out in purse. So that's a way. So we need to look at the consumer psychology, the trends that are happening. If people are becoming comfortable, if they know, ki, yes, my transaction is going to be 100% successful, the BCP will automatically remove. And I think that's where the payment infrastructure where we have to work. We need to work, have a collaborative, more and more collaborative approach between the innovative fintechs and the banks to actually produce seamless and frictionless payments.
Fantastic. Actually, in fact, some of the work that we do in the market based on, say, tier 3, 4, 5, 6 towns and small places, what we see the trends on this payments has really picked up, and 40 to 50% of people, they are comfortable or they have made some or other digital payments in their life. So that has been a welcome change that we see in India. Coming to Anup quickly, let's hear some global examples or key lessons on how consumers view frictionless payment. Over to you, Anup.
Yeah. So we see frictionless payments across three categories of customers. So we're talking about international cross-border payments, we're talking about corporate payments, and we're talking about SME payments. Now, by virtue of all these three segments that we are looking at, the number of moving parts across all these three segments is distinctly or significantly different when we start structuring customized solutions. So all these three segments require are customized solutions. What is true for one segment will definitely not be true for another segment. So it requires a lot of customization. It requires deep integrations with all the ecosystem partners. And as we go down the channel, might be for a set of customers for international for international cross-border transactions, while a template would be the same, but it changes from country to country. If you look at corporate payments, if I'm doing, for example, we're doing business with one of the largest banks for the FMCG segment. When we do that, if it's a single payment option, good to go, no issues. It's just one card-based payment happens, the deal is closed. But the moment you take another flavor of payment, the conversations are different. The integration requirements are different. The downstream partners become different. And when it comes to SME, by virtue of the fact that they are in a different space, they are in terms of generation of even the technology requirements, it becomes complex. So my simple, so while Shruti and Swapnil were talking about, multiple authentication mechanisms that can go true for B2C payments, a lot of them can, at some point in time, can be used, but a lot of this cannot be used in the B2B space. You need to customize the solutions, and hence the complexity of arriving at an end-to-end solution changes with time.
Thanks, Anup. Actually, I'm just, again, thank you all for basically sticking to the time. So I have some time to ask last question from the panelists. And since Anup spoke about some of the payments on the B2B side, like what are the things, maybe I'll just extend that first question to him. And I'm just trying to understand that what's likely to happen in future. So maybe Anup, you want to spill some beans that what possibly could happen on the B2B side of frictionless payment? Maybe 2 or 3 points.
So difficult to crystal ball on this, but yeah, regulations are going to be far tighter. It's not that because the requirements of regulators is going to be stringent. That's point number one. So all the B2B players in the space will have to be on top of the ball with regard to managing the regulations. Point number two is data security, data integrity norms are going to be very tight. Okay, what's true on the B2C space in India, or for, of course, our regulator, hats off to him, has done a phenomenal job. It's not going to go easy on B2B. So data integrity, safety, while B2C, while frictionless is a good word to have, but with the kind of volume, the voluminous payments, the size of the payments, I don't think any player in this space would like to do or get into this space without, covering all aspects of security. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
So risk is very high. So probably they have to take a measured approach. And Shruti, I'm sure that you have many ideas. Probably some of them are work in progress. So you want to share or you want to enrich us?
Thank you, Anil. Yes, so when we look at the future of frictionless payments, you can actually classify them as short, medium, and long term future that we see. So, firstly, something that will happen in India is availability across all regions, whether it's city or rural areas, and in online offline space. The other significant penetration that we see is within the high volume, low value ticket items, right? That's where a lot of the penetration we will see. Then, retail, I think retail is one area we've always talked about that frictionless will happen. In this case, like my friend just highlighted, there'll be transaction limitations, transaction size limitations that will be imposed, and it'll be only allowed for certain category of merchants to make sure there's a trade-off between convenience and security. So then frictionless payments or what we call invisible payments will basically boost omni-channel experience across online, offline touchpoints. So that is another area. Then there'll be a special focus for payment solution providers to make the solution robust, scalable, secure, interoperable, which I think we are all, from technology perspective, looking at it on a daily basis as a grind. Some use cases that we see can be worked on immediately are things like toll and transit, fast tags, which are already coming out. Then we are talking about contextual insurance for travel and health. Then linking frictionless payments to reward programs. That will be another area that we see with real-time offers based on location and trends. Ultimately, all this has to boost customer experience and build customer trust for new use cases to come out. So that's where we see the future of frictionless payments.
Thanks, Shruti. I think too many to come, and we will see that how it comes. Probably over to you, Swapnil. You want to share some emerging trends?
I think the emerging trend is today you look at all the e-commerce platform where customer is actually logging into that platform or using that application. And every time he is using a separate ID, separate registration. Can we look at something which is a common payment platform? So a single subscription type of a super app type of a thing where he should be able to have access across different all e-commerce side where he uses the same
centralized
credential,
KYC type of thing.
centralized
Centralized
KYC
ID
type, centralized payment, because he can have then his payment platform. In the contactless space, India already we have increased the limits. But if you look at it globally, our credit cards has been accepted at any value. Here there has been restriction. But I think the post-regulation, thanks to the regulator of pushing the guidelines ahead, and now we will be complied soon on the tokenization. I think post that we can see the surge in the total payments happening in the contactless. We can have increased limit maximum up to 25,000. That will also bring up a large level of innovation. And then maybe NPCI day before yesterday, and they have also launched a lot of products around UPI. So can we see? So we are looking at one use case is, can we have an UPI ID linked with your face? So facial recognition and UPI, if it can be linked for the future, I think that will be the innovative and disruptive payment that we can look at for the future.
By the way, Aadhaar database also has your face in it.
Yes. So that needs to be. So government needs to have that. So we can also integrate with the UID and probably we can take it from there.
Thanks, Swapnil. Actually, moving to Sanjib. So, Sanjib, today morning only he signed an agreement with NPCI for taking UPI to Nepal market. So, Sanjib, we want to hear from you that what are you going to do with that?
All right. I think actually NPCI and Gateway Payment Nepal, a separate company, are already in agreement driving the UPI in Nepal. So my company, NEPS, has signed agreement with the Gateway Payment Nepal, who drives UPI in Nepal. So making particularly a cardless UPI integration. That's what we are trying to do. With India, we have had a historical relationship. What in Nepal, what we call with India, I think we border your Sikkim, West Bengal, Bihar, and UP. So about 35% of Indian population is already connected to Nepal, right? So we have a roti beti ka relationship. So with roti beti ka relationship, we have now moved to the Bhutan relationship also with UPI integration. So I think this is very historical, very, like in a sense, once with this, I think I encourage and urge all of you to visit Nepal and try your UPI app, whether it works. You must come and visit us to at least try. But Nepal is beautiful, much beautiful than where you are, I'm sure. So you must come and enjoy our beauty and hospitality. Perfect time between now to December, so more reason to come and more reason to come and use your UPI experience in Nepal. We are trying to work in the cross-border experience, how to make the payment, more seamless, more frictionless. I would like to see the UPI app of India working in Nepal and my Nepali Connect IPS app working in India. I think that is what we'd like to do that. And going over, interoperability, cross-border interoperability is one thing that I would really like to see, at least between India and Nepal, because these are the only two countries in the world that share very unique relation. No other countries that comes to my mind that share this kind of a historical, cultural kind of the relationship. And UPI integration, this morning we signed an agreement at the presence of NPCI. Very soon you'll hear the good news. UPI rolling out in Nepal. So with that, again, it's my duty as I stand here representing my country to encourage you and maybe forcefully take some of you to Nepal to visit, so that is my job. So welcome to my country, visit us.
So whenever you are Sanjib, you are using force, use it on me first. Huh?
Right.
I'll come.
There are special
Yeah,
offers which
and
will
maybe
give.
by next week, I may be in Everest Base Camp. If any one of you in the trekking or stuff, you are happy, welcome to join me. I'm off to 10 days trek into Everest Base Camp.
Fantastic, fantastic. So actually, probably we have a couple of minutes. So in case there are a couple of questions we can take, maybe keep your questions short so we don't run out of time. Thank you. Yeah, please.
Hi, this is Vijay from Lyra. This frictionless and borderless, very interesting topic, and as Nepal. So, how soon we can have, because India and Nepal, actually we have free border. So, it's payment also free movement. How soon we can have? Do we have any timelines?
I think we should be ready as the local partner of NPCI Gateway Payment Nepal. I think their representative may be in this room. I'm not too sure. I think, I think this would be your Diwali gift.
Oh, great, thank you.
It looks like.
Thanks for this question. Any other question in case anyone has any pressing question? Okay, so yeah, so maybe this is time to close. So first of all, thank you all for sharing all your thoughts about how it has happened, how people are going to adopt it, and what are we going to see in the future. So from our context, I think we have made tremendous progress over 1,000 years. Like we used barter system, then coins and currencies, then electronic payment. And probably we are moving into a era where we are talking about payments using some electronic codes and the strings so that it can move. So we are talking about digital currency also. And our panelists, they are playing, like so many others, they are playing a pivotal role in making sure that these are seamless and frictionless, not only for consumers, but also for businesses. Before I close, I just want all of us to consider the last few people in the queue to make them as part of this fabulous and awesome journey that will make it much more inclusive and sustainable for all. So thank you all for listening to us. Thank you to all my panelists. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.